think it all started when I was like 15 years old. I caught a robbery charge in juvenile. And in between 15 and 18, I was in and out of juvenile for several different offenses, from robbery, terroristic threat, gun charges. And then when I turned 18, I was involved in a lot of different things, and I was charged with 13 major felons, from murder to armed robbery, different things of that nature. And so I ended up doing 15 years in prison from 18 till I turned 33, and I got out in 2007. I'm Dr. Omar Howard. I am chaplain at the Atlanta Transition Center. In 1993 in the county jail, I was determined to do something different, because I realized then in my life that prison, jail wasn't for me. And I knew by the time I got out that I wanted to be a different person. Didn't know how that was gonna come, didn't know anything at the time. I was a young man. I ended up going to church and just, crying out to God, because for the first time in my life, I had to really cry out to God, I don't want to be the same person. So I got saved in 1993, and in the process of doing time, I began to develop a relationship with Christ. And over the process of 15 years, they had me speaking to all the schools that was coming in. When I got to the halfway house, they had me traveling down the state of Georgia, speaking at school, churches, juvenile facilities. It really gave me a desire to do something different, not only spiritually, but to also have impact in my community. I just involved myself in every self-help program that I can get involved in while I was in the institution. Because one of the things I told myself was, whenever I get out, I need to be ready. I need to really be ready. And so I took up everything, trade school. I just tried to learn everything I could, not knowing what I was actually going to do when I got out, but I just wanted to be prepared, because there's an expectation for you, but then there's also the unknown. But I wanted to make sure that I cover all the ground that I could, to make sure that mentally I'm thinking different, spiritually I'm being different, and physically, hopefully, I'm in shape to be able to do what I need to do. So those are the practical things that I decided to do, was just try to get involved in everything I could to better myself. I got my GED. At the time, they didn't have college courses, so I was able to get my GED and take all the self-help programs. Watching your kids grow up was tearing me apart. Watching my mother age was tearing me apart. Losing a lot of my family members while I was in here was tearing me apart. There was no affection, there was, even just the affection of just being around my mom or my kids. Everything was just, you had to be numb, and but the one thing kept me from totally just blanking out or being just numb to everything is my relationship with God, because it allowed me to care for people and allowed me to pour into people. Mentoring kids in juvenile that was in the juvenile program while I was in prison. I would speak to the school, so I was able to pour back into people. So it really kept me alive. It kept me determined to get to the next level of my life. So, but in the midst of that, that's what kept me balanced, not to fight all that boredom and loneliness that you go through. From the first day I got out, it was a challenge. I'm an only child, so getting out and dealing with probation and dealing with trying to find a job, housing, and depending on whatever your stipulation is as far as your probation, it can be a major challenge for most people. But trying to reestablish relationships with your immediate family, everybody's excited at the moment, but after 2, 3, 4 weeks, the real world kicks in. Bills, trying to be a father, going to the schools and trying to reestablish that relationship with your kids who even though they visit, yet you've still been absent in their everyday life. And I think I failed on a lot of it because I didn't know what it was to be a father. It disrupted me for trying to have a relationship, because I didn't really realize how traumatized I was coming out of prison. And one of the key things I would tell people is I went in prison when I was 18. I got out when I was 33, and I still had an 18-year-old mentality. All I learned how to do in prison was to survive. I didn't know, I didn't establish a mentality of maturity. I remember shortly after I got out, a couple weeks after I got out, my stepfather told me there's one word that I need to put in my vocabulary, and that was no. Learn how to say no. Everything can't be yes, and so you run into friends, you run into old friends, and people try to pull you back in a certain area of your life. You have to learn how to say no. It's a challenge. It's a challenge like no other. But you have to have self-motivation. Like, you have to motivate yourself every day. Just like I was motivating myself in prison, or all the things I want to do when I got out, I had to motivate myself the same way in order to establish myself once I was out. But one of the things I've always believed in, if I help disrupt my community, then I should be one of the ones that help heal it. I think it's important for anybody that's matured, has went through time and matured. I personally think, my opinion, is that you at least owe your community to get back out and be a productive, responsible citizen. And if you have any kind of heart for people, or you have a heart for your brothers, or your little sisters, or nieces and nephews, or some friends in the community, or your own kids or grandkids, then I think you owe that to yourself, to your family, and to your community to do something different, be positive, get out here and show them that, show society and those who don't believe in that you can change, that everything's possible when a person decides to do something different. Doing time, you can never get that time back. But while you're in there, don't let the time do you, you do the time. Make sure you use your time wisely and make it count. If I get advice to anyone who's about to be released or about to go home or be delivered from incarceration, I want to share a couple things with you. First of all, stay motivated. I think you need to be motivated when you get out here. Another thing is, start separating yourself from people who are not good for your life or you progress moving forward. That means whether it's family or whether it's friends, separate yourself from them. Have good communication with those who are in your life and those who are helping you to reintegrate back into society. Love yourself. By all means, more than anything in life, love yourself. And your relationship with God has to be number one. Establish those things in your life, and I promise you, you'll have a great life.